So, good afternoon to everyone. Hope you're all well. And weather's a bit dull. It feels a bit like November to me. So today we have with us, we've got Gareth. Hi, Gareth.
Hello.
And we have Naomi. Hi, Naomi.
Hello.
And we have Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hi, everyone.
And I can see Kevin there. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, I'm here.
Yeah, and Liz, you're with us as well. I saw you briefly and then
I am.
disappeared again. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it's hard to believe it's November. Some start thinking about Christmas, which is really depressing. There's only 12 days of Christmas, and none of them are in November. But there we go. Right. Okay. So, oh, I haven't shared my screen, have I? That's a bit. I'd forgotten to do something. Let's kick off. So, Kim's just going. Sweet. Can you give us an update for where we are?
Sorry, Malcolm, I only just heard you then. Morning, everybody.
Morning, Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hi. Just a very brief update. The overwhelming response from last week is that the majority would prefer 2 half days rather than spread out over 4 short, snappy workshops. So we'll be organising that commencing the 10th of January, most likely to be a Wednesday and Thursday morning. But we'll finalise that very. Malcolm and I will have a meeting a bit later this week to talk detail. I'm on holiday next week, so invitations and how to register, etc., is likely to come out the following week. So that would be during week beginning the 29th of November. I've been inundated actually with people wanting to be at the top of the queue. So it will be priority given to directory members, but even then it will be on a first come, first served basis. Not much more I can say about it at this point in time, other than that I've got some meetings with proposed speakers later on this week. So all that detail will come out the week after next.
So that's brilliant. So if anybody's got any questions, they can either email you or they can email me, and I'll pass on the emails to you.
You're breaking up, Malcolm.
Can you hear me better now?
A little, I think.
Yeah, was I breaking up for everyone?
Yes. You're frozen now, Malcolm.
Oh right, okay, that's that's excellent. I'm running on this machine session.
Malcolm, would turning your camera off help?
My phone from.
I think we've lost him, haven't we, a little bit there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Oh, is he back? I don't know if Jake's. Jake, have you got copies of the slides? As in a PowerPoint copy?
I have not, I'm afraid.
No, I've only got the Word copy, so I can't even whip them up.
I've got the slides that Malcolm sent around this morning, and I could put those up and share them if that helps.
Yeah, are you going to talk? Who usually goes first? Is it Kevin? You usually do business rates first. You're muted, Kevin.
Yeah,
Should we let Kevin
I'm
do his
happy to
business
do the
rates
business
update?
rate side. There is
And yeah, if you get your slide ready for in a minute, Gareth, then we'll bring you in after Kevin.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got the PDF here, so that's they're not my slides. These are the ones that Malcolm sent round.
Oh yes, yeah, we've got those. We'll give him a minute, Kevin. If you want to do your bit, we'll see if Malcolm comes back in a sec.
I've never known Malcolm to be speechless before, but anyway, business rates. We're still waiting for the guidance for the new expanded retail discount. So no real update on last week. I am also working with BIS on the grants post assurance work as well, although I'm still waiting for an official letter to start it on the Christmas support payment. So if anyone has had any information to start post assurance work on the COVID grants, it's not over yet. We're still getting a lot of work from it. Let me know. And they still have a lot of reconciliations to sign off as well. So be warned, they might come knocking on your door for some money back. On council tax, not much to report either. ERD, there is talk of a tax day at the end of November. Well, we're slowly getting to the end of November. So we should have some information on that soon in respect of the guidance for ERD. No nursery discount. I did mention the previous things before. I have pulled some notes together. I'm hoping to get them over to Malcolm in the next few days. So people did ask for that. Happy to take questions. Not much to report, really.
Kevin, it's Naomi.
Hello, Naomi.
Hello. What do you mean by a tax day?
They had a tax day. It's just a government name for a day where they release a load of information like consultation responses and guidance. So it's just what they call it.
All right.
They had one in March, by the way. So I wouldn't put any true significance other than they announce a load of announcements and information and consultation responses, etc.
Cheers.
Kevin, when did you say it was?
End of November, I was
End of
told.
November.
So, because obviously we need to look at the impact of this and, of course, whether or not there's an implication on the software. ERD, there shouldn't be any impact on software. Transitional relief and the supporting small business relief for 1 extra year may have an impact on the software. So, best to talk to your software providers, I'd suggest.
Mm-hmm.
Capital users I'm already talking to, by the way.
Okay, hi, I'm back, I hope. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Over to you, Malcolm.
Don't quite know what happened there. I don't know. Do we have any software providers on here? Mick, can you see? You might want to give an update from their end.
John?
Malcolm,
Yeah.
they probably wouldn't know because the MHCLG or Lurch or Lunch, whatever they're called, don't talk directly to software providers. They go through an intermediary.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah,
the software companies would probably know very, very little about it.
That's correct, Kevin. We're in the dark at the moment.
Yeah, John. But your software provider, your liaison point should at least be having a chat with the software company. And if you've got any issues, John, just let me know, and I might be able to give you a bit more.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, thanks, John. Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I disappeared there. I don't quite know what happened there. Probably a Windows update or something. Right, okay, so that's the update from Kevin. I was just going to touch very briefly on the household support funds because some notices came out from that. Did everybody see that? Laura, did you get to see this?
Sorry, I was on mute again. No, I have to say I haven't had any influence on the household support fund for Oxfordshire because it's sitting very kindly with our county partners.
Yeah, okay. And is that the same for you, Naomi?
Yes, it is. And actually, I'm really, really pleased, not just because it, saves me some time and effort, but I do have to say that our county partners were really excellent with the other funding previously. So to build on the original connections and referral points for this funding, it makes sense, really does.
Yeah, I mean, on the whole, it does look like it's just sort of a warming over of the old support fund, but with the sort of slightly lighter end. I noticed that they say quite clearly in the note collaboration is required between the DWP, the authorities, and delivery partners such as district councils and
Malcolm,
charitable organisations. Yes, Kevin, please.
I thought the county were doing it here. Then I heard housing were doing it in our authorities in West Sussex. However, I've been asked for a meeting at 1:30 today to talk about it with our housing department. So at the moment, I wasn't thinking I was going to go anywhere near it. And Megan will probably be grimacing at the moment. So I'm just waiting to see what the meeting at 1:30 is about.
Okay, I mean, it does say quite clearly it can be used to support housing costs where existing housing support schemes do not meet this exceptional need. I mean, it does seem to cover an awful lot of stuff. Isn't that right, Gareth? Yes, you're muted, Gareth. I can see you swearing, but
sorry, I have to say that I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to know whether it links up with DHPs in terms of you have to spend that money first. And we're still waiting in Wales to find out what the money is likely to go into. We suspect it'll go into the DAF, Discretionary Assistance Fund, here. But no, I'm pretty much at a loss as well at the moment.
yeah, and I expect that's probably going to be true of Scotland as well. It will go into their local fund, but it does seem to me as though this is both well defined and undefined simultaneously.
And also insufficient.
Well, yes, because I suspect also not much of this is new money either. So, is anybody going to be administering it on the call here? Just out of interest, any of the unitaries? Does anybody raise their hand, Nick? Or
At the moment, no. But just saying that may change at 1:30, but I don't think it will.
okay.
Malcolm, it's Laura. Can I ask a silly question? Is this just not a rebranding of the social fund loan, just in a slightly different guise?
It is, but it's got kind of wider remit and in some ways a more specific remit. I mean, it is a bit of a hodgepodge. I mean, the expectation, as they say on there, is it should be primarily used to support households in the most need with food, energy, and water bills. Now that would be different. But again, it's still talks about genuine emergencies and all of that kind of stuff that went with the old scheme, as well as throwing in, housing support as well at the same time. So, it seems to be all things to all people. I see there's a note there from, let me just find it. Yeah, so Gary Lazelle has said that in Derbyshire, the county is looking forward to hand some of the money over to the district to support existing delivery vehicles such as DHP and homelessness prevention, as well as delivering a proportion for themselves. And I would think that's probably got to be the more common way, I would have thought. Yes, Hammersmith and Fulham are saying they're signposting it and have partnered with a fuel bank foundation. And at Havering, they're using it in a number of ways too. It's the same. Les also says the same. It's sitting with the community team at Stoke, who are responsible for administering and distributing local support grants. So all of those kind of things I would have been kind of expecting. I think probably if district councils thought they were going to not be included, I expect many of them will still be included. Absolutely, housing departments must be dead keen. If they get a whiff of money, they're on it, aren't they? Give me some of that money. So I guess that's probably what's going to happen. Yeah, sorry, Gareth.
Even if not directly delivering it, presumably there'll be a role for identifying those households who are vulnerable and who might need help.
Yeah, and it's going to be pretty important for local authorities in a kind of joined up way to see how this funding fits in with, you know, local strategies for anti-poverty. I mean, in some places, clearly the counties and the districts don't get on very well, but in most places, I would think that they're probably fairly aligned. Yeah, so you know, there's comments here that, you know, Marlene saying they're able to refer people to the county for support. So I think it's going to become intrinsic to the area. But as you say, Gareth, not much money really. Ultimately, that'll be spent quite quickly, I should imagine. Okay, so so I now wanted to have a chat about some of the little things that cause administrative challenges, which is something that's become a little bit close to my heart recently. So things that are affecting administrative or causing administrative delay, and I know Gareth will have some views on this from the other side, as it were. But I mean, during the pandemic, there have been a significant number of issues that in themselves may not be seen as significant, but do contribute to administrative delays. Oh, and quite a lot of these, I think, I've just pulled out a few of them, are not necessarily obvious to the concepts of administrative delay. And one of the things that is sort of popping around now, and I don't think you discussed this last week, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, was this discussed last week? Was staff retention issues? Yeah.
Don't think so.
Okay, so which was staff retention issues. So an organisation called Randstad UK, they found that 69% of staff are now feeling confident about moving to a new role in the next few months, with 24% planning a change within the next 3 to 6 months. So I was going to ask you all, is you know, starting off with staff, if there's a big churn of staff lurking around, is that going to really affect what you're doing? Are things like budget cuts going to affect them? Is the aspiration for automation going to affect staffing arrangements? And what about things like councils recruiting or even poaching or laying off and skills shortage? So is that an issue? Kevin, can I start with you? Because you live in an area where poaching is quite common, isn't it?
Not necessarily. Yes. Who said poaching was prevalent in our area?
I am.
That's an assumption you're making.
I had a look at some of the figures.
Well, perhaps the figures are only released on a need-to-know basis, and I'm certainly not within that aspects of it.
Okay. And what about you, Laura? Are you staff retention going to be an issue for you?
Yes, I think it is going to be an issue. I think I've got to be honest with the amount of emotional burden, let's put it that way now, on the staff, because they're at home. That's still really a problem with some of my staff at the moment. They like to be in the office. They want things back as where it was 2 years ago, and because it's not going to be going back like it was 2 years ago, they're struggling with that. I think we've got lots of changes that have occurred. We're still dealing with the test and trace, and my staff are demoralised, still dealing with that, still going through churning applications where people just don't qualify. They're just chancing their arm to see if they can get something because they're desperate. That's demoralising for my staff. So, and in terms of budget cuts, you know, I've already told my section 151 we can't cut any more to the bone, because we are at this precise moment all hands working every single hour physically possible at the moment just to try and clear what we've got, so that we can make a good attempt in for next financial year. We're still playing catch up on so many different areas where we've done some good housekeeping normally. We just have never got to this housekeeping for this financial year, so we're playing a lot of catch up on there, especially with self-employed reviews and things like that, because we need to start looking at that again, because now that the self-employed income support grant has finished, we need to think about January, what are they actually doing and all that extra work ready for year end. So I think I've got a kind of a mixture of age in terms of my staff. So I think some will retire and see it as an opportunity to escape. Whether I'll have to use those as a frozen post, I think the chances are I will. It'll stay in the establishment, but can you live without it until you get really desperate, Laura? And in other cases, I think, you know, some of the younger members of staff might just think, is this my career for the rest of my life? This is an opportunity to change.
The other one you want to add into your list, Malcolm, is training and training budgets, but both because local authorities' training budgets have dropped over the recent years because of pressures, and also because, of course, delivering training has had a huge switch around in the last couple of years in terms of moving from face-to-face into online and e-learning more.
Yeah, and Malcolm, just coming back to me, I'm sorry I was being a bit thing earlier on. I think a lot of authorities, as Laura says, are restructuring. Now, whether they're restructuring on budget grounds or restructuring on other grounds, etc., but we're having to look at authorities and the way we administer. I noticed business rates retention, the government have quietly dropped 75% rates retention last week because it's not part of their levelling up agenda. So that would suggest that some authorities may get 100%, some may get 50% moving forward. I think I have so far won the message that we need to keep our frontline staff together. However, others, perhaps my level, are very much we're about to go through. Well, we're just in the process of going through a management restructure. So looking at that as well. And yes, perhaps it is time to get out, Laura.
Naomi.
Pretty much all of what's been said. We, as you know, have recently been through a restructure. The council does still have to find savings, so just need to make sure that the fact that we've not actually finished our restructure is taken into account and they don't come aggressively knocking on the door for that. I get, as you know, Kevin's just said, we are actually fairly frontline, dealing with not just vulnerable people, but also collecting a shed load of money for the authority. So just be careful about slicing staff in that area. We also have got concerns over people retiring. Oh, I wish. But then it's an issue easily getting in staff. Training is particularly a problem. We've got some excellent staff, but they are getting to the age where, under the pressure of the last 18 months, certainly, they may decide to go slightly earlier than they would have done previously. We do pay more than our colleague authorities, and I think that's going to be more evident now that most of us are working from home. The thing that put people off working for Cambridge City, apart from working for me, obviously, was the commute into the city, which was horrendous. But if we're saying, 90% of your working week will be at home, we might get more staff from colleague local authorities and shove it up the flagpole. Sorry.
Well, I assume then, Naomi, and I guess, we both know the answer to this, Laura, to a certain extent, is, of course, you're not really restricted if you've got home working to neighbouring authorities. You can go far and wide. Laura, of course, employs an appeals officer who lives in Yorkshire. As an example, because we're cheap up here in Yorkshire, that's what it is.
Well, I've got 4 assessors in London, and I can't work out why I employ them, to be quite honest, because London pays so much more than me.
And you have to pay the London waiting, do you, or what?
No.
These days.
It is quite interesting though, because at Mid Sussex we've been waiting for job evaluation for 13, 14 years, and perhaps people being poached may help us in those arguments, etc. Because they've never actioned it, and as a result of that, my staff are probably underpaid. So if they get poached, it probably helps the case, the business case, the market case, etc. So probably a good thing, but hopefully they can delay poaching them for a few more months.
But is that it's the training. I mean, the training issue that Gareth brought up. That's a kind of hidden cost, isn't it? If
Well,
you
the training
lose
is
the
often
skills.
with budget cuts, and I'm sure my colleagues will confirm this. Budgets is often the first thing cut in
Yeah.
budget cuts. It's one of the
Yeah.
first lines, but it's a long-term investment against a short-term gain.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at, Kevin, is if all of a sudden you suddenly have staff retiring and staff leaving, you have to take on new people, then the training budget that you've cut then suddenly has to be a budget head that you have to reinstate, don't you? And there could be a lot of competition for really good training.
I get that, and I thought it was a buyer's market, but we've just been out recently for a job, and we had very few people apply, and the ending of furlough hasn't yet had that major effect on us. No one's irreplaceable. Yes, but knowledge and experience built up over years is something that would be a loss to an authority, whether at whatever level you are. And Megan's just noted here, by the way, that she doesn't want anyone poaching our staff, by the way.
Okay,
She's keeping an eye on me.
That's fair enough. We're under notice, Megan. We take the message.
Yes.
Right, Liz. I know. Do you have anything to add to this, or I'm sure you do.
Well, I'm quite interested in what Randstad have found, that 69% of staff are feeling confident about moving to a new role in the next few months. Presumably, that means people are just on the move.
Yeah, that's fundamentally what they're saying. I mean, it's not something that is necessarily about revenues and benefits.
I know Randstad are obviously a large recruitment and employment. It's just interesting they're feeling comfortable, which must mean, of course, that there are, well, we know, I suppose, that there are lots of jobs out there.
Yeah, and that's going to impact then on things like caseload and churning the caseload as well, isn't it? As people move off and on benefits and other support. So that's going to be, but I guess what I was kind of getting at is if your staff, of course, is in a state of churn, that probably adds to your administrative delays and things like that as well in terms of dealing with those things. Let's have another look at another administrative delay. Post office backlogs.
Can I just ask a question, Malcolm? Is anybody here going through a restructure locally in terms of what their councils amalgamating? I obviously live in Buckinghamshire, but I border Northamptonshire, and I'm very much aware they're having reorganisations and they're having some staffing shift. And not that I'm promoting some of my former colleagues at Northampton Borough Council who may be in that zone now, where maybe they are in that position where they may be starting to lose their jobs or maybe need some redundancy thoughts. If people are advertising, maybe I can just advocate here that if councils are thinking of putting their staff out because we've got a restructure where you're amalgamating 7 councils into 2, if maybe they could advertise internally that they're going to lay some staff off, or maybe we could, where we've got vacancies, see if we can pick up some really good experienced members of the staff.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're quite happily, if you've got adverts for staff and stuff like that, we're quite happy to put those out across the wires, as it were.
Perhaps the government knows something we don't, because they've dropped local government from their title.
Yes.
Yeah. So you never can tell. What does levelling up mean? Does it mean a complete revamping of local government to a unitary basis? Yeah. Don't worry, we've got Michael Gove there.
And he's added drum and bass to the title now, I understand.
Yes.
Drum and bass.
Right. Okay. So other potential administrative delays, things like post office backlogs. So are things like all those wonderful notifications getting through, or are they held up? Laura, I think you've got a bit of delay in Oxford at the moment with post office.
yeah, we've got a hideous delay. I'm not going to lie, it's 7 to 8 weeks, which I must admit has made me think about maybe sending out my Christmas cards to my staff now. What we understand on Friday is that the East Oxford sorting office decided not to deliver any post for 2 weeks for whatever operational reasons. That's not my concern, but it has resulted in so far 7 to 8 weeks worth of backlog. One of my members of staff's neighbour is a postman, and apparently he goes to work, and they used to just get their box and it would be fine, and now they've just got boxes and boxes all around them, and they just can't deliver it quick enough, and that they're focusing upon parcels at the moment and parcel force items, well, obviously where the big clients are. So from my point of view, I've had to send an email out to staff to say to them, you know, if you're asking someone to provide evidence in the next 4 weeks type of concept, then you need to email them probably instead of making a letter. And we need to start changing our process and approach to dealing with people, being a bit more technologically minded, because if the post office isn't dealing with the post, I mean, that's a bit of a problem when it comes to reminders, finals and summonses, to be quite honest. And I haven't even come up with a concept of how to deal with that, because I've also got a revenues head on at the moment temporarily. But we are going to have to seriously think about how we're dealing with that from a collection point of view.
And Kim, can I ask you, you know, from your thoughts around subsidy, you know, things like post office delays, do they get treated in terms of subsidy as being claimant error, or are they down to being administrative error or official error?
There's no precedent set for these long delays with post. It goes down to as claimant error until the date that the local authority receives all of the information that they need with which to reassess, you know, if it's a change of circumstances, to reassess the benefit, etc. So it becomes local authority stroke administrative delay from that point on, once they've got all the necessary information. And for subsidy purposes, nothing is distinguished between LA error, official error, and administrative delay. Administrative delay really came in to appease councils who were rather upset at it being local authority error. So it you know, the two amounts of money are listed separately in one part of the subsidy claim form, but then they're all lumped together for your local authority error threshold.
Gareth, I mean, you've sat on many a tribunal. You know, how do tribunals look at this kind of thing, or do they just say, "Don't bring it to us"?
It's a long time since I sat on tribunals. I'm very happy to say. Certainly, sort of when I was sitting on them, the tribunals would try and look at things in the round and apply kind of common sense where the regulations allow it, which isn't always the case, of course. From the point of view of looking at the way in which the kind of the people that we support are seeing this, it's not something that we've really heard about in any sense other than the generality of slow decision making and problems of that sort. It's not popped up as being a specific issue, I don't think, that we've seen anyway.
No, I kind of imagine that most you know, welfare rights organisations would see this as being, you know, something outside of the control of the local authority. But nonetheless, it kind of does bubble around. Have you got?
It bubbles around, but the issue does tend to be more about where people actually deny entirely getting something, rather than just saying it arrived late.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that one. And what about post office delays? I mean, do local authorities generally keep an eye on things like post office delays in their area as part and parcel? Is that something you would do, Naomi? Keep an eye on what's happening at the post office?
Yeah, obviously, if it starts to bubble up in the local press, then we will have regard to it. But having said that, a lot of our stuff goes out electronically now. First communications route is always email, followed by a telephone call, and then finally by post. We've really changed how we communicate with people. So the reliance on the post office, sorry if a relative is a postie, has much diminished for us.
And of course, Laura's right in saying I think the post office these days concentrates more on parcel post than it does on letters. But can I just come then to emails, because I mean there is that reliance now on emails and electronic communication. But one of the problems that we've had just this weekend is 3 days of BT Plus Net, which underscores an awful lot of other email service providers or rebadged, people like John Lewis, for example, and also Google Mail was affected. So we are seeing more and more of these kind of outrages affecting email. Is that something that we particularly worry about, or if you've asked somebody for something and they can't email it into you because they only have a Google account, or the potential of what you've emailed out disappearing into the ether? You're all looking at me very quietly here.
Sorry, Malcolm, I'll ask a question. I'm a bit confused there. Are you saying then that certain people's email addresses creates problems of malware and that could create an issue for the council?
Oh, there is that anyway. I mean, that's fairly standard. Okay. That is standard. No, but outrages are where the service provider. So the most common one, of course, is Gmail, which is run by Google. If that gets an outrage, then the whole of the email service is down. It was down for 3 days.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so nobody who is using that, Gmail has been guaranteed that they're going to get any kind of email. And also BT Plus Net, which is used, I expect probably used by some local authorities as well, has also been down for 3 days.
But that still will be quicker than snail mail.
Well,
Sorry,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they'd be all stacked up until the issues were resolved, and there's just a flood of emails requesting or sending in the evidence. And as Laura said, 3 days delay, damn sight better than the several weeks.
Post office.
And as a customer, if you're not getting a response back from your email to the council, it's a bit of a clue. Whereas if you put something in the post box, you don't get that sort of sense of, this is going to go and it should be in a set time scale.
I remember about 10 years ago, the post office was complaining that people weren't using their facilities and they thought it was the end of the post office and that things were going to all changing through mail. And they probably did exactly what the government did when they wrote to us back in 2012. Get rid of your staff, you're not going to need them because universal credit's coming in. So the post office probably reorganised itself in the mail sorting offices, cut it all back and went, oh, we've got these wonderful machines. And now, in the middle of COVID, those wonderful machines can't cope. Who'd have thought that it'd all come round in a full circle? I've been doing this job too long.
The other thing people still really need to remember, of course, is that an awful lot of people, particularly those maybe dependent on pay-as-you-go phones for both the internet and their telephones, really run a lot of risk of just running out of credit and not being able to access the information or to send or make calls because of that. And one of the problems about people who actually have to talk to somebody on the phone is the length of time that somebody is on hold, which causes people to run out of credit completely.
But is that...
There's a lot of free Wi-Fi in the city, though. So
don't you?
Yeah, there is a recognition that some people don't have an awful lot of data within their packages or no data in their packages. But there are many places within certain Cambridge, and I know many city areas, that people can just stand and pick up, Cambridge Wi-Fi, for instance.
But is that not another area of where there is, sort of areas of poverty, because it is true. If you're in the city, if you're in Leeds, then obviously there's plenty of free Wi-Fi knocking around. The council runs free Wi-Fi across the centre of Leeds. But if you're in a rural area, or if you're just on the suburbs of Leeds, you don't have access to necessarily to all of that. I mean, even here in Wetherby, we would have to go into Wetherby town centre and probably into Costa in order to get free Wi-Fi. The council hasn't run free Wi-Fi across the whole of Wetherby. So is that another challenging area for us?
That's a far bigger area, though, isn't it? Of challenge. I mean, it's not particularly a challenge for. It's a governmental challenge. I mean, it goes back to, if we are moving and pushing and into a digital future, which we are. I think about it. I mean, even if you can pick up free Wi-Fi in Wetherby, you've got to go into the town centre. That involves costs for many people.
Yeah.
It just, it's almost a societal thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it doesn't necessarily add to administrative delay per se. But there is an argument that suggests that just because you live in an area that doesn't supply easy access, that the council is let off, that you can just claim that as administrative delay. So
no, but I suppose it is worthwhile looking at the areas of digital poverty in your local authority.
Yeah. So the other thing I was going to ask about also is council office closures. I see there's quite a few council office closures. Only seems like yesterday we were complaining about job centre closures, and now we see council closures as well. Are many of you closing offices, reducing down the number of offices?
Yeah.
Yeah. You too, Laura? Yeah. And Kevin, you've only got the one office, haven't you, Kevin?
I think we've got to make decisions how we use it. I don't think they'll close it. It's too big and out of the box decision to make, because the building is an older one, although there are discussions about a building at council level further down nearer the railway station. So I think there are decisions to make about home working, hybrid working going forward, but we're still working under the COVID rules at the moment at my authority, where we've still got a lot of staff working at home, and there's no keenness to change that at the moment. Although we're trying to get staff in 1 day a week, most are still working from home.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just conscious of the time is ticking on, so let me just see what's on the next slide, whether that's got very much. Yeah, so I think we've really covered some of these. I may pick these up in future weeks. Other things that may cause problems. I wanted to know a bit more about contracted out services. I'll ask about that in future weeks, I think. And also about bad web design and form design. No one wants to hear their baby's ugly, obviously. And there are some very nice looking forms out there I've seen, but they're not particularly good forms, even though they look nice. And also things like chat bots. I wanted to talk about those. But it's 1:45, so we've come really to the end of the time. So I'll pick some of those up as discussion points in future weeks, if that's okay. On that basis, I'm going to then just thank my panel. Can I thank you, Liz and Laura, Naomi, and Gareth and Kevin?
Thank you
very much. Thank you for the input from others, Kim. And the others that typed in the box, and don't forget, keep your staff chained to the desks so they can't get away. That would be my advice. Okay, so on that basis, I will see you all next week, and have a good week. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.